In ancient Chinese script, the character for money is jin. It is built from two distinct pieces. On the left is the radical for gold, representing wealth, but on the right lie two stacked blades. The etymology carries a clear historical observation. Where you find vast mountains of wealth, you will invariably find violence. In the 18th century, Britain developed a national obsession with Chinese tea. Millions of pounds of it were shipped to London every year, consumed by everyone from the high nobility to factory workers. This massive demand created a severe financial crisis for the British Empire. They were importing massive quantities of tea, but the Chinese had almost no interest in buying British goods in return. The Qing dynasty imposed a strict condition on this trade. They required all foreign purchases to be paid for in pure silver. Because of the trade imbalance, British silver reserves drained steadily into China, pushing the royal treasury toward bankruptcy. To stop this hemorrhage of precious metals, the British East India Company designed an alternative currency. They decided to manufacture a product so addictive that the Chinese population would be forced to buy it, regardless of what the Qing court dictated. The East India Company operated unlike any modern business. It was a corporate empire that possessed a private army of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Granted extraordinary powers by the British Crown, the company could mint its own currency, enforce its own laws, and wage wars as an independent state. When the company turned its attention to the Indian subcontinent, it utilized a mix of military force and strategic bribery to subjugate local rulers. After key victories like the Battle of Plassey, they secured the rights to collect taxes across massive fertile regions of India, gaining absolute control over millions of lives. At the time, India was the manufacturing workshop of the world, responsible for a quarter of global GDP. The company systematically dismantled this economic engine. Through harsh tariffs and physical coercion, they crippled India's textile sector to eliminate any competition for British mills. With the industrial base dismantled, the company repurposed the land. They forced Indian peasant farmers into strict contracts, compelling them to abandon essential food crops and replace them with miles of opium copies. Replacing food with cash crops had an immediate human cost. As the company recorded some of its highest profits to date, the region was struck by the Bengal Famine of 1770. Over a third of the local population perished from starvation. Millions died to secure the agricultural foundation of a state-sponsored drug cartel. The British East India Company broke the wealthiest economy on Earth to manufacture the narcotics they needed for their trade deficit. This chart knots out a macroeconomic loop known as the triangular trade. Indian-grown opium was trafficked into Chinese ports by British merchants. The Chinese purchased this opium with silver. That same silver was then used by the British to buy Chinese tea, which was shipped back to London. Through this closed-loop system, the British solved their deficit. The constant injection of narcotics effectively reversed the global flow of precious metals, stripping silver out of the Qing dynasty and depositing it into British accounts. Inside China, the consequences were severe. Within a few decades, millions of citizens, from government officials to laborers, developed crippling opium addictions. The workforce degraded, and the national treasury was rapidly depleted by the outward flow of silver. Facing economic and social collapse, the Qing emperor appointed a high-ranking official named Lin Zexu to eradicate the crisis. Lin addressed the issue at its source, drafting an open letter to Queen Victoria. He pointed out the deep hypocrisy of the trade, noting that Britain strictly banned the consumption of opium within its own borders while actively exporting the poison to China. When his plea went unanswered, Lin took direct action in Canton. He seized roughly 2.6 million pounds of British opium, mixed it with lime and seawater, and publicly destroyed the entire stockpile so it could never be recovered. To the Qing court, eradicating the opium was a desperate measure of national self-defense against a corporate invasion that was actively poisoning their population. The British Empire viewed the destruction of their illicit cargo as an attack on free trade. In response, they deployed their state military power, initiating the conflicts known as the First and Second Opium Wars. Britain fought these wars exclusively to protect a corporate drug monopoly. the government committed its national military to two massive campaigns aimed at ensuring the East India Company could continue its narcotics trafficking without interference. The Qing dynasty's military, utilizing outdated weaponry, was entirely outmatched by the industrial might of the British Navy. Armored steamships and long-range cannons easily decimated Chinese coastal defenses and blockaded crucial trade routes. The surrender forced China to sign the unequal treaties. The Treaty of Nanking compelled the Qing government to pay massive indemnities, cede Hong Kong, and open its ports. These signatures stripped the empire's autonomy, initiating the century of humiliation. Britain combined industrial violence with the raw biological pull of addiction. By weaponizing a narcotic, they forcibly pried open a closed market and subjugated an ancient superpower. The total scale of the economic extraction that fueled this empire is staggering. Modern economic historians estimate that over a period of 2 centuries, $45 trillion in wealth was systematically drained from the Indian subcontinent. In 1700, India and China collectively controlled vast portions of the global GDP, operating as the world's primary economic engines. By the mid-20th century, their shares collapsed to single digits. This engineered poverty was rebranded as natural backwardness, erasing the pillaging from history. Hostile trade policies and resource extraction ensured these regions became raw material appendages for British industry. India and China were systematically prevented from industrializing, leaving them in a state of engineered underdevelopment. The East India Company established the specific administrative and financial structures that still govern international resource extraction. Their model of using debt and coerced agriculture to move wealth toward a central power persists in modern global commerce. The current concentration of global wealth reflects the success of this 18th century business model. Modern global inequality is the direct result of a system built on stolen silver, forced addiction, and imperial violence.